The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is the Tropical Storm Beryl briefing as of 4:30 p.m. Central Time this Friday, July 5th. And a few changes since the last issuance. We have now posted hurricane and storm surge watches for the immediate coastline, but we also are noting at the same time that the track of Beryl is shifting east, reducing the potential impact away from the coast, meaning most inland locations. So let's get to it. So it was emerging into the southwest Gulf north of the Yucatan Peninsula as we were writing this slide deck. A Beryl is expected to regain hurricane strength while approaching the Texas coast on Sunday afternoon. Their trend to a northward turn continues, which reduces the threat for the lower Texas coast while increasing the threat for the middle and upper Texas coast. So if you have folks that work from Corpus Christi to Galveston, Houston, they need to be paying attention to the future of Beryl. Beryl is remaining a relatively compact cyclone with 39-mile-per-hour wind radii, expected to still extend only out 90 to 120 miles from the center at landfall. But still, little wobbles matter. While we are increasingly confident of this eastward trend, any slight shift to the west or to the east will have significant differences on the impacts. So a further shift to the east would limit impacts to only dangerous and high surf and tidal run up to the dune line. That would be it. A shift back to the west, however, would sharply increase impacts of storm surge on the coast and wind a little farther west, mainly into Brownsville, Harlingen, and Raymondville, and flooding rain in those same areas, especially for urban and poor drainage locations. And to reiterate, a hurricane watch and storm surge watch is in effect for the immediate coastline. So let's go over the overview and the impacts. This has changed a bit from the last time. The types of impacts have not really changed, nor has the description of them, but it's the location that we want to focus on now. Basically, for wind, we're really highlighting South Padre, Port Isabel, Bayview, Laguna Heights, and Port Mansfield for critical wind impacts, including structural damage. Time frame remains about the same. We've tightened it up a bit more. Now it's a Sunday evening through Monday morning. As far as storm surge and inundation, we're looking at the Barrier Island and unprotected shorelines on Laguna Madre, but favoring Port Mansfield north, and that may be shifting farther north still. So that will be Sunday evening through Monday morning. For flooding rain, up to 2 feet of water depth in poor drainage locations, but right now we're really looking at that being near the coast as well, in the same locations as we mentioned the wind. Time frame may start a little earlier, Sunday afternoon, as some of those initial bands try to come in, and then continuing through Monday around noon, ending latest as we get up into Port Mansfield. The tornado threat is elevated, but mainly east of Interstate 69E and US 77, as we expect more of a north to northwesterly surface flow, which would not be favorable in this environment as we get into western Hidalgo and the brush country Rio Grande Plains area. And that would be Sunday afternoon through Monday morning. And then marine is our biggest threat. Dangerous high seas and hurricane force gusts will damage vessels not built to handle this. And that's all the lower Texas Gulf waters, and including Laguna Madre, where the tropical storm force gusts could cause issues. That begins as early as Sunday afternoon and continues through Monday, although the strongest winds are likely to shift north of the lower Laguna Madre and the Texas coast east of South Padre, maybe before then. So keep tuned to that time frame, as that will vary as we move forward here. So in terms of the hazards, a quick bar chart example, we had this before, but it was not quite right. The wind, again, coastal communities only for significant wind that could cause damage. We're really concerned there, but farther west, it's a sharp drop off, including the big cities along I-69E. The highest surge could be from Port Mansfield and north. We'll get to those details momentarily. And flooding rain, we're not expecting much, more beneficial than anything else, and that's still questionable if that even occurs in places that still need it in the growing areas of eastern Hidalgo, western Cameron County, and Willacy County. Marine is the big one. Near extreme conditions, if you're heading out anywhere between 20 nautical miles and 100 nautical miles offshore, that's where the hurricane is expected to go when it gets there. So here's the latest track from the 4 p.m. advisory. It's emerging from northern Yucatan right now. And we do have those hurricane wind watches in the pink shading here on the coast. Storm surge watches are also in effect for the lower and mid-Texas coast, not shown on this graphic. Potential impacts will become better refined over the next 24 hours. We'll have a really, really good idea on this event come tomorrow morning and definitely tomorrow afternoon. Again, a lot will depend on the actual track, since Beryl is expected to remain a relatively compact or small cyclone. The track has shifted east since this time on Thursday and even this morning, and it may continue to do so through Saturday. Any farther east of a shift in the track is going to take most of our region out of the woods for this event. So stay tuned. That might be the good news that comes, although we certainly could use rain in the reservoir region, and we're not going to get it, I'm afraid. So here's a satellite view just after 4 p.m. or just before 4 p.m. You can see the swirl here. Tropical storm, it was weakened by both wind shear and land and around offshore. You can see the swirl there at the northern tip of the Yucatan. A few days ago, ravaging case. But Beryl is well organized, as you can see in this satellite picture. Combined with the very warm waters and potentially lower wind shear across portions of the Western Gulf, this could intensify quickly by Sunday and Sunday night within the last 12 to 18 hours. Again, Corpus Christi, Port Lavaca, Aransas, all the way up to Freeport and Sargent and even Galveston, be on the lookout sleeve, as the Hurricane Center mentioned in their briefing earlier. We want to be ready for that farther up the Texas coast. So here are your wind speed probabilities morning. It's now a 5 to 10 and 7 in 10 chance for 39 to 57 mile per hour winds in eastern Cameron and through Kennedy County, and just a 2 to 4 or 20 to 40% chance in Brooks and Hidalgo County. That is subject to change. If we have an eastern shift in the track, even this evening, we're going to see those probabilities go down another 10 to 20%. The favorite time is Sunday evening through Monday morning. We've tightened up that window, and we're pretty confident of that window right now. So all the preparedness should be wrapped up where you need to wrap it up by Sunday morning to be on the safe side. Again, this is subject to change, and if it does change, we're going to go in the lower versus the higher direction based on the model trends that we've seen even this afternoon. For the 50-knot winds, these are the damaging winds of 58 to 73 miles per hour. There's a 1 to 3 in 10 chance of those winds east of Interstate 69E and US 77. That's Cameron, Willacy, and County is Willacy and Kennedy, so you can see here. There's only a 1 to 2 or 10 to 20% chance for the same winds in western Cameron, Willacy, and Kennedy, possibly extending all the way out to eastern Hidalgo, eastern Brooks, the interstate there, 69C. But again, those chances have been going down today. We think they may go down another rung tonight into tomorrow morning. The favorite time is, again, Sunday evening through Monday morning. And there is very little chance for these winds west of Interstate 69C, US 281. So McAllen, Edinburgh points west. We're not seeing much chance. It's showing here around 5 to 10%, but we think that number could be reduced towards 0 in the next 12 to 24 hours. Hurricane wind speed probability is basically hugging the coast, and they're very low. So 5 to 10% chance at most on South Padre Island or the Barrier Island up to the Padre Island National Seashore. Timing again Sunday evening through Monday morning. Once again, subject to change with lower chances. A little bit of an eastward shift with the current intensity forecast and size, and that will take even the 5% probabilities off the coast into the Gulf. Earliest reasonable time of arrival, if things speed up, and we've seen some signs there might be a little speed up here, is now a little before daybreak on Sunday at the lower Texas coast. So that would be the earliest reasonable case. So if you have to prepare, you want to say be ready by Sunday morning. Don't wait later on, especially if you're on the beach or nearby. The most likely time of arrival is now Sunday late afternoon, early evening. Again, we pushed that time up a bit based on some latest forecast models that we've seen. And then a little bit later, getting farther inland. Again, farther inland only if those winds can reach. And as you saw in the earlier slides, we're not expecting that anymore. So potential storm surge impacts, we've been looking at the data closely. We do have a storm surge watch in effect, and this shows a moderate potential, which is between 2 and 4 feet of inundation above normally dry ground. But right now we're thinking closer to 2 feet, meaning lower, in fact, notably lower than what we saw with Alberto, and maybe more in line with what we saw here with Harvey. The highest water could possibly still occur on the Padre Island National Seashore or Pins, north of Port Mansfield, where they could still see a 3 feet of inundation above normally dry ground. And in those areas, including Port Mansfield, the high water could cause some damage to bayside docks and move watercraft on the island. So we're really concerned about that area still. Once again, a slight eastward shift would even take Port Mansfield out of the mix for a worst case scenario or a reasonable worst case scenario. So here's the peak storm surge forecast. Again, with the storm surge watch, that basically says we have the potential for 3 feet or more of inundation, which can give you a problem for not only craft, but people as well. We don't want that to happen. So the watch is just to be on the safe side. It includes everybody on the lower Texas coast, but again, we're looking at higher values, more likely north of Port Mansfield. Again, the opportunity would be Sunday all day through Monday morning. Why all day? Because the swell train coming from Beryl, which will be moving westward, will be moving onto the coast and bringing that wave energy with it. So we could start seeing the surge peak up even while we're moving out of low tide or into low tide from high tide during the day on Sunday. This forecast could still change with lower values, meaning just 1 foot. With an eastward nudge, and 1 foot we can handle. In fact, that would probably allow some of the beach to still be available Sunday, although hit or miss showers would not make it the best beach day along with that bad surf that we're expecting. So here's the updated storm total rainfall that we have from our Weather Prediction Center up in Washington. And they really nudged the numbers down, especially when you get west of Interstate 69C, where we're talking basically 1/2 to maybe 1 1/4 inches McAllen westward. As you get into the brush country and the Rio Grande Plains, we're talking 1/4 to 1/2 inch at most. All that rain is beneficial, but the unfortunate non-beneficiary of this event will be the reservoirs of Falcon and Amistad, where we're literally expecting near zero amount of rainfall. That is not good news, not the news that we need, because we are going into the peak of the season, but with each miss, we hope we get a hit sometime to get some water into those reservoirs. Unfortunately, Beryl will not be that maker. So to close out with key takeaways, we've now increased our confidence to moderate regarding the impacts based on that eastward shift that is becoming more defined in each forecast we put out. So now we're looking at 39 to 57 mile per hour gusts, most likely near the coast of Cameron, Willacy, and Kennedy. 58 to 73 plus mile per hour gusts are remotely possible for the Barrier Island and Laguna Madre. And remotely, I'm saying 10%, 20%, so really not a big percentage there. But a little bit more emphatic Port Mansfield north. Again, that could shift eastward and even take Mansfield out of it. Time frame Sunday evening to Monday morning. Tidal run-up is likely on the beach and bay side of the Barrier Island, with water running up to and into the dunes and causing issues with docks and boat ramps elsewhere. Again, that's favoring Port Mansfield right now, and that could even shift farther north. So we're looking now at 1 to 2 feet possible, with 3 feet potentially along Padre Island National Seashore. And we'll see how this goes. And one of the reference points that we're using for this event is Harvey, believe it or not. So Harvey, which became a strong category 2 east of South Padre and ultimately a category 4, which was actually larger than this one by a little bit, made quite a dent into the storm surge for the coastal bend, but we only had about 1 to 2 feet of storm surge on South Padre Island and at Port Isabel on the Bayside with Harvey. So this storm being a little bit weaker, maybe a little smaller, it may be hard to get that kind of value. And of course, it will run up the beach, which isn't great, but it won't be, we don't think it'll be anything like what we saw with Alberto, the way it's shaping up now. As far as rainfall flooding, yeah, it's possible in poor drainage areas east of Interstate 69E in Cameron County especially. Time frame would be Sunday afternoon, evening through Monday. But again, another eastward shift, and we're looking at less rainfall. And in fact, what we're hoping for is just more beneficial rains. Like I mentioned before, we have some dry spots here still in the lower valley. And if we can get maybe an inch and a half of rain, that would be wonderful news to keep everything nice and green. We can't rule out a tornado Sunday afternoon or night with the initial feeder bands that come in from the east. We always have to be careful about that. But as the storm shifts to the north and we get more of a north-northwest wind later Sunday night into Monday, that tornado threat should go away. So we're talking afternoon, evening, maybe till midnight or so. And then marine conditions is obviously the big issue. We really advise people who are planning boating or fishing trips to cancel them from Saturday evening on and to be in port no later than Sunday morning. Even the shippers need to really watch this event. Shippers don't like to run through hurricane force winds and seas that could run up to 20 feet with a lot of roughness. So if even with this eastward shift, we do think in the waters between 20 and 100 nautical miles east of the shore, we're going to be in that hurricane when all is said and done. So with that, that's what I've got for the briefing, and we will have a 4:30 a.m. email briefing, which will be what you see for those partner emails. Now, right now, we are planning on doing a webinar at 10:30 a.m. to potentially close this out regarding webinars, or if things change back to the west, we'll continue that going probably into Sunday. So with that, I'm going to stop recording.